Okay, so you've led into it perfectly there. The only thing is, when I ask you now about this team joining Fnatic, right, just don't spoil what happens at the first tournament, because that's going to be a way better question afterwards. So here's the scenario. I'll explain it to fans. The team you're talking about that you beat, and I'm sure it was this along with some of the international failures where, you know, like by the end they couldn't beat Na'Vi and stuff like that. Basically, they'd remade the amazing team from 2009. They got Gox back from SK, so they have this crazy-ass lineup. And in that team, if people don't know, the reason why they were so dangerous is because the three really sick Swedish players was obviously Forrest, Get Right, and then Gox, and these guys were unbelievable. And so actually in that team, like Khan and DSN, who in the past used to be pretty good fraggers, they basically were sort of like supportive elements. They kind of did what Neo and Taz did in CSGO. And basically, when they're at the end of that year, because obviously I was at SK at the time, this crazy scenario happens where the story goes something like, you know, like something like Khan wanted to kick Get Right, but then Get Right and Forrest had already sort of agreed, like, we don't leave together. So then instead they came back to Fnatic and were like, no, the other way around, kick DSN and Khan, and Fnatic had to pick, and because at the time the person picking in Fnatic, it's not a CS person, it's one of the people from the org, his loyalties were to Khan, obviously, because he's the guy who's built Fnatic. So amazingly, someone actually did just say, nah, I'm just going to let Get Right and Forrest leave and go to my main rival. So when they went to SK Gaming, in this particular time period, Fnatic had to retool. They had to get players back. Now, in this context, well, they're not getting Gox back because of what's just happened, the mutiny. The rest of the Swedish players are people who've either like been in SK and weren't as good, or they're kind of the people around the HUK Lions level. Like, there's no one that you can compare because all the star players are in SK now. So at the time, everyone thought, like, first of all, SK is clearly going to be better. But then the other thought was, no, this Fnatic team's going to be trash. Because even though you got Delpan, listen, he's a skilled player, then it was like, okay, we're putting in Exist. Yeah, he was a pretty good player. You know, he had some skills. He was like an up-and-comer. And then you joined the team where, as you say, unless someone thinks about that one map, they're going to think, wasn't his team terrible? It was he. Listen, you're not Get Right Forest. You know that. So when this lineup gets announced, like, everyone, like I said, don't spoil what happens at the event, but everyone was like, this is the end of Fnatic. Like, this is so sad, you know, they're going to be terrible. Everyone thought, for real, you'd be like a 9th to 12th sort of team from there on out, you know. When you came into this squad, give me some thoughts on, like, the team put together, the vibe. Like, was it actually clicking immediately? Was there anything that could hint that you wasn't going to be a team that was just okay? Because I always say to people, it's kind of like if players join Astralis this year. Listen, everyone dreams of joining Astralis if you're Danish, but you don't dream of joining it when all the good players leave. You dream of being in the one with Device and Glaive. So was there any of that sentiment? Like, have I just joined the bad Fnatic?
Yeah, 100%. That was like my feeling when I joined. Like, first of all, for me, it was just amazing to be able to get at that time a decent salary, but also to play for Fnatic, for an legendary organization, a team that I looked up to just 2 years prior to that moment. But as you said, when I came into the team, it didn't feel like the Fnatic team that I had built up in my head. You know, Forest was Fnatic for me, Get Right was Fnatic for me. Obviously, Karn and DSN were also. But as you said, during 2009, those players were the support players of the team. So when I came in, I was like, okay, but wait, I've also been playing a supportive role this last year. And Exist, yeah, he hasn't been a star player. Delpan, yeah, he can be a star player, but are we supposed to rely on just one player? So my thoughts going into that team was like, okay, I'm just happy that I get the opportunity, and I will try to do my best. Are we going to win any titles? I don't believe that, but like, I couldn't refuse that Fnatic invitation. So I took that, looked at the other teams. I saw the SK team. I was like, I don't want to play that team because Forrest, Get Right, Allen, Face, Robin. I was like, no way, they won't be the best team in the world with that lineup. Obviously, we had Na'Vi breaking out at that time also, with Markelov, Edward, and those guys. So I was like, okay, yeah, this will be a rough time in this lineup. And yeah, that's the first tournament that we had. I think we had maybe 2 weeks practice going to Kiev for the Intel Extreme Masters Europe tournament.
So here we go. I'll set it up for people. That was the sentiment among even other pros, all the experts, the commentators. So this tournament comes along, and this was one of those ones where, because basically, like, Kiev was the European Championship. Well, you can imagine back then, like, Europe just was the main region. So also, obviously, it's actually the European Championship arguably could be harder to win than the World Championship because there's less European teams at the World Championship. So at this tournament, right, when you come into it, first of all, like everyone thought, because both teams are there, well, the SK team's going to win it. Like they didn't even get out the group stage. In fact, famously, they left. And I remember because I was working with them, like they even just like booked a flight home the next day or something mad, like instead of waiting the 3 days or whatever you're supposed to. Then for your team, even though you got like a close win on Na'Vi in the group stage, again, it's very easy, especially back in the day when people go to loads of lands. Usually the top teams will just drop a random best of one, and then the idea is you get it back in the playoffs, you peak in the playoffs as it were for your champion. And Na'Vi obviously with the monster team of the year before. So then you go into the playoffs, right? And this is where, if I was making like a documentary or a movie, it would just like pause here. Because in the semi-finals, if I just explain to fans, right, it was Fnatic against Na'Vi. Na'Vi literally, by the way, has just won the last 3 majors in a row and like broken the prize money record the year before. So every fan's like, right, well, they're going to lose. Then the other side of the bracket is MTW, who was arguably the second best team of the year before, and the Poles, who, like, this is actually when they were getting really good again. So of these 4 in the semi-finals, your team, no joke, on paper, would be the one that's least likely to win the tournament. And you beat Na'Vi, and then you beat the MTW team, and you win the whole tournament. So this must, again, I mean, this actually it's almost reminded me of when you were in MYM and you just had this miracle run out of nowhere. Because what happened in this tournament? This seems like one of the craziest stories I've ever heard of.
Yeah, as you said, the first game when we played against Na'Vi, home crowd, people cheering for them, playing on the stage. I do remember, like, I don't think any individual in the team like were the key factor why we won, but I do believe Karn had one of his best games in that Fnatic time when I was there. I do believe that was one of his best games. I also do believe that he did the clutch at the end. When we had 15-14, we had the B site on Inferno,
yes,
and he did 1v2 clutch. So I think overall we played good as a team. I think the thing that I learned after that first game, but throughout the tournament itself, was that CS is okay. There's a lot of pro teams today who do believe that we can just put the best player in every position. So let's have the best AWPer playing the AWP. Let's have the best rifler playing the rifle. Let's have the best individual IGL playing the IGL role. And they just think like, okay, we have the best players in every role, we will become the best. That's the way that I thought back then also. But I learned from that Fnatic lineup that, okay, the most important thing isn't that you have the best players on every position. The most important thing is like you have the right players in terms of mentality. Like, what kind of decisions will you take mid-round? For an example, my thing that I always did was I tried to refrag. So if anything happened, I would try and go refrag. Then you had other players who do not have that mentality, and just maybe like instead of going for refrag, they're standing back and holding the angle and then wait to push. Depending on like what kind of player you are, there's no right or wrong, but you need to have that good mix. And I do believe in Fnatic we had that good mix. That's the reason why I do believe that we did so good at that tournament. Also, I do believe, as you said, as everyone thought, no one thought that we would do any good. So I do believe also we had that factor playing in also, that teams didn't expect us to be good. So when they played against us, there was like, yeah, they're not the same Fnatic anymore. We're going to beat them. And then they go in and then we beat them. So like as the tournament progressed, then we got into the semifinals and we played the final against MTW. In the final, I can honestly say that we won the final because of Exist. Because I don't remember when I've been in a team when I've seen one player win a game. Usually, like, even as a coach, I've always said a player won't win you the game, the team will win you the game. This was the only time, seriously, when a player won us the game. And Exist was crazy, that final. So we ended up winning that final. And the same thing happened also as in MYM. It was a fluke. We were lucky. And the same kind of stuff was repeated. So at that time I was like familiar to getting that kind of feedback from the community. But it was a great feeling winning with that Fnatic lineup. And I remember the Fnatic organization was very happy with us also. I remember Sam, the owner of Fnatic, he was also very happy, obviously, because as you said, he chose to go with the being loyal to his friends in Karn and DSN instead of going with the two best players, arguably the two best players in the world back then, Forrest and Getright. So I think overall everyone was happy, and the Fnatic fans were also happy. So it was a great time, and one of the best victories that I have experienced.